Hey, welcome to Made for More. My name is Aaron Burke, and I'm so excited you're listening to this month's podcast. We created this as a way to really help leaders walk into the more that God has for them. We're always growing, always trying to get better. Today, we are going to talk about your speech. I titled this The Lips of a Leader. Like, how should a leader talk? And your communication and the way you talk and what you say and what you don't say matters a lot. The Bible tells us that the power of life and death are in the tongue, which means that your tongue can build up what God's called you to do. It could also tear other people down. And we've all had those moments that we were having a great day. The birds are chirping, the sun is shining, and then one person says one stupid phrase, and what does it do? It tanks your entire day. Why? Because words are powerful. We've also all had the same thing happen that is opposite, where you were having the worst day ever, and one word of encouragement, one bit of celebration helped you go to the next level. Why? Because words are powerful. I've realized that if we can learn to control our speech and say what we need to say and don't say what we don't need to say, making sure that we really hold our tongue, then we are able to really make a true difference. I mean, we've all had that moment where we've said something, and as it's coming out of our mouth, we're going, this is so stupid. Why am I saying that? So how do we learn to control that? The Bible calls that bridling our tongue. James 1:26 says, if anyone thinks he is religious and does not bridle his tongue, but deceives his heart, this man's religion is worthless. Now, that phrase religion, we can take that as a bad connotation today, but back then, that was not a bad thing. The idea of having a relationship with God, truly wanting to follow him and live the way God wants you to live. And he says, listen, if you want that relationship with God, you want to serve God, but you can't control your tongue, let me tell you, your relationship with God is worthless. And how many times have you met people that, man, they might have a great business, great potential, but they say something that just ruins all of it. So how do we speak as leaders? I'm going to give you 3 things today that every leader should focus on when it comes to their speech. And I believe that as you focus on these things, and let's be honest, we all need to get better at this. As we focus on this, then we will get better as leaders, have more buy-in from our team, and people will go further than they ever could have gone before because our speech is right. So here's the first one. The leader's lips are sealed. Sealed means they're able to hold confidence, meaning that as a leader, we are able to walk with confidentiality with what we hear, and we are not a gossip. Proverbs 11:13 says, a gossip betrays confidence, but a trustworthy person keeps a secret. What does that mean? That means that, listen, when you gossip, when you say something that you're not supposed to share with other people, you lose credibility. And this is vital as leaders because leadership is built on one major value. And I want you to get this, it's trust. And when you break trust by saying something you should have held in confidence, that is very hard to build back up. I used an example with our team that one of our staff members was pregnant, and she was going through a really, really difficult pregnancy, but nobody knew. And I'm her pastor, and so she had let me in on it, let me in on what was going on when she was in the hospital. And I'm very close with some of our staff. And so when she finally made the announcement, she went to one of our staff members who's really close with me and said, hey, I'm sure you already know because you're around Aaron all the time. And he said, oh, no, I hadn't heard anything. And what was that? That was able to hold confidence that I had known for a few months, this news and what was going on in her life, but it wasn't mine to share. And I've had to learn that because I used to think I got credibility by sharing the info on everybody else. But what I realized is when you share somebody else's news, you don't gain credibility, you lose it. So, because the reality is if someone's gossiping to you, then you know that person's probably gossiping about you when they leave. If they will tell you everybody else's secrets, then they're going to tell your secrets to everybody else. So you've got to be very careful at making sure you are a confidential leader. Meaning, if someone talks to you about something in private, just go, okay, I'm going to keep this between us. Now, let me talk to you about why this matters, because we understand that when you're able to hold confidence, you build trust, And when you lose trust, you lose leadership. And really, the only thing we have going for us is that people trust us. So I want people to be able to say they trust me with the most important things in their life. And you know this. You know that there's people that, as much as you love them, you're not going to tell them something that you're going through because you know if it goes to them, it's going to go to 10 other people. That's what gossip does. Gossip spreads. So don't be someone that engages in gossip. What you do is you realize if someone's sharing something with me, they're trusting me to hold this tight. And the reality is that my leadership credibility hinges on the fact of if I'm going to be a person that can hold confidence. Now, there are scenarios where a leader needs to speak up on confidential things. So, for instance, if someone's going to come and share something really important with me, I'm going to say something along the lines of, by the way, as a pastor or as a counselor or whatever you are, if you tell me something that I am required by law to report, I'm going to report it. So when it comes to abuse, when it comes to self-harm, when it comes to the fact if somebody else is getting harmed, I am going to report that. So I make it clear up front, like, hey, if you're going to tell me something, I'm going to do something about it. There are other times where somebody will share something with me, and this is so vital because I will think during that, man, I wish they were sharing this with somebody else that could help them, and I know who the person is that could help them. Now, in our normal church culture, what I would do is I would go and just tell that other staff member or that other pastor and go, hey, by the way, so-and-so shared this with me. You should reach out to them. But instead, what I've learned to build credibility is, let's say Bob comes up to me and says, hey, I'm battling with this issue in my life. And I think, well, Fred could really help him in that. I will say this phrase, hey, I appreciate you telling me. I want to pray with you about that. But if you really want some help, I would recommend you going to Fred. Is it okay with you if I talk to Fred and make the connection happen so that we can actually get solutions about this? Do you see what I did during that? I actually kept confidentiality with the idea of fixing the problem because so many people disguise gossip as a way to fix the problem by sharing somebody else's dirt with everybody else. And that is wrong. You are not responsible for sharing everybody else's dirt with everybody else without their permission, even if you feel like it will help them. So what you do is you get permission from them. So how do we fix this? I'm going to give you a practical application for every single one of these. The first one, for how do we fix this sealed problem, meaning able to hold confidence, is you just don't engage in gossip. Let's remove gossip from the culture that you're in, whether it's a workplace, a family, a church. Gossip is poison to your culture. And the more you're talking about each other, the less you will trust each other, which means the less you will be in unity, which means you will not accomplish the vision. So what do we start with? We start with removing the gossip. We speak life over people. And if somebody tells us something in confidence, we hold it in confidence, making sure we are a trustworthy person that is able to build credibility with other people. That's why Proverbs says, without wood, a fire will go out, and without gossip, quarreling will stop. So if you feel like your organization is filled with a lot of quarreling, a lot of fighting, get to the root issue and kill the gossip. Don't engage in gossip. And it starts with us as leaders by just not talking bad about other people behind their back. And if someone tells you something in confidence, keep it confidential. Here's your second one. The lips of a leader are not just sealed, but they're also stable. They're stable, which means they're able to be controlled. We all know those leaders in our life that we question what is going to come out of their mouth next. We're wondering what mood they're in. We wonder what kind of version we're going to get of them today. You know, they're celebrating one minute and they're angry the next minute. What are they? They're like a roller coaster leader. And what I've realized with those kind of leaders is it's hard to follow an unstable leader. So with your speech, be stable in this, making sure that you're saying, man, am I bringing multiple versions of myself? I always find it funny when I'll hang out with someone, maybe it's working out or we're driving somewhere and maybe a car pulls in front of us, does something crazy. And then a curse word comes out of their mouth. And then they'll always say this phrase to me, like, I don't know where that came from. I'm like, I know exactly where that came from. Garbage in, garbage out. it doesn't come out of me because it's not in me. I want to make sure when it comes to my speech, I'm consistent. I'm stable. There's Pastor Aaron. I'm a dad. I'm a husband. I'm a friend. I'm a coworker. But it's the same speech for all of it. So how do we do this? Well, I love this acronym that'll help you. Leaders need to walk by the WAIT principle when it comes to our speech. Here's the WAIT principle. WAIT. You ask yourself this question: why am I talking? Why am I talking? Leaders, you don't always have to talk. You don't always have to have something to say. And if you'll slow down, the Bible says be slow to speak. What does that mean? What does that mean? It means that we're quiet, we're listening, and we're not just saying whatever comes to our mind. You ever have those people that's like, I'm going to give them a piece of my mind? And the reality is that piece of your mind is probably not what you need to share. You need to share wisdom, knowledge, things that are thought through. So don't just say whatever comes to your mind. Wait and ask yourself this question: why am I talking? Is what I'm saying worth coming out of my mouth? And does it build credibility in people's lives? Proverbs 29:20 says, do you see a man who is hasty in his words? There is more hope for a fool than for him. What a powerful phrase. Like, hey, our words, if we're hasty with them, there's more hope for a fool. I've had so many moments where I'll say something and then afterwards I'll go, why did I let that come out of my mouth? What was I thinking? I've heard it said that it is better to remain silent and be thought a fool than to open your mouth and speak and remove all doubt. What does that mean? Like, sometimes you just got to be quiet. Think about what's going to come out of your mouth, then thinking you have to say what's on your mind at all times. So another verse, Proverbs 13:3 says, whoever guards his mouth preserves his life. Like, I want to preserve my life. I want to preserve the organization I have. I want to preserve my family. But if he open wide his lips, then it comes to ruin. So when you speak out of anger, when you speak out of frustration, what does that do? It brings ruin all around you. So you're stable in your speech. You're able to say, okay, I'm not going to speak everything that comes to my mind. I'm going to control it. I'm going to wait. I'm going to ask myself, why am I talking? And then I'm going to have a moment to go, okay, is what's going to come out of my mouth going to build other people up? So here's your practical application: is you simply just think before you speak. You think about the fact that, man, is this an empty word? Is this a life-giving word? Is this a word that's going to build others up, or is it going to tear people down? Just pause. I have learned if I'll just pause and just take a second and pray, go, God, do I need to say this? Do I need to write this post? Do I need to respond to the text this way? That if I'll just pause, what's going to eventually come out is going to be so much more life-giving, so much more credibility. Don't say whatever comes to your mind. Say what is building other people up. Let your speech be stable. So we talked about our speech being sealed. We able to hold confidence. It's stable. And here's your third one. The lips of a leader are significant. They're significant means they are able to bring life. Your words should bring life to other people. One word of encouragement can change the trajectory of a person's life. You don't speak to what they are, you speak to what they could be. You find the gold inside of them and you speak that gold over their life. You see the potential of their future and you say it over them. And when you do that, you know what happens is they tend to walk into that future. The Bible says in Proverbs 16:24, kind words are like honey, sweet to the soul and healthy to the body. Oh, I want to become that person. I want to have kind words. When I walk into the office, I'm not sitting there just thinking of everything that's wrong. I'm thinking, who needs to be encouraged today? Who needs to be built up? I want to find ways to really celebrate who people are. I had a crazy scenario where I got to meet the president, and I was in what's called the Roosevelt Room, which is right outside the Oval Office. And there's about 20 of us in the room as we're about to go into this Oval Office. And by the way, I put a video about this on my YouTube channel, so check it out. But it was interesting. For about 35 minutes, I'm in the Roosevelt Room with the president, and I'm watching him go from person to person to person. Now, despite your opinion of the president, let me tell you what this guy does correct. he went and found every single person. He would find something he loves about them. I remember this guy standing next to me had great hair. And he's like, oh, man, you have the best hair in the room. The lady next to him had a beautiful dress on. He goes, oh, my, that's the best dress I've ever seen. He goes up to me and he goes, oh, you're the pastor, most important guy in the room. There you are, Reverend. He found something about each person. And I remember thinking, this is the president of the United States. Yet he found his way to say something about each person. And I was like, that's a gift. That's a skill, but it's actually something we can all learn. Let me encourage you, be that type of person. Don't be fake. Be a real person that loves to encourage people around you. The Bible says in Proverbs 10:20, the words of a good person are like pure silver, but an evil person's thoughts are worth very little. And that's what I want to be. I want to be a person that brings value to to the table. So what's the practical application? The practical application is use your words to add value everywhere you go. I love that. I want to find people who and even bring them around me who are constantly adding value by their speech. And I want to be that person to other people, that I'm just adding value by speaking over them what could be instead of what we see. Colossians 4:6, let your speech always be gracious. Oh, what a phrase right there. Our speech is gracious, seasoned with salt. So we got grace, we got seasoned with salt, so that you may know how you ought to answer each person. So I'm going in not with a negative spirit, not with a negative attitude. I'm going in to having significant speech. Now, let me just be very clear about this. Significance in our speech does not mean we don't say the hard thing. It just means we say the hard thing with grace and seasoned with salt, which means with kindness. You can say the difficult thing with a right spirit, and it will bring unbelievable results. If you say difficult things with a mean spirit, an abrupt spirit, you will not get the right results in your life. So what you do is you go, I want to say the right thing that happens to be a hard thing, but I want to do it with a kind spirit filled with grace, seasoned with salt. And what happens? You'll get the right outcome, because it's not just the words you speak, it's the attitude you have and the approach you have to those words that bring about the results you want to see with your life. So let's make it really practical. How do you do this? Here's what you do. The same way that you are in the shoes you're in and you're at the seat you're at because somebody spoke something over your life that's significant, do the same for somebody else. I remember when I felt like God had called me to ministry. I was 16 years old and had this encounter with God. And I remember coming back to my youth pastor, and I was the worst kid in my youth group for the years that he was my youth pastor before that. Wild kid, crazy, always disrupting services. I was just chaotic. And I came back from this missions trip where I told him, hey, said, my life has been totally changed. And I feel like called to ministry. And I feel like God's calling me to even serve in our youth ministry. And I was ready for him to tell me there's no way it's possible. You are barely saved, if anything. There's a lot of problems. You got to build a lot of credibility. I was waiting for him to tell me everything that was wrong. And I remember sitting across the table from him at this restaurant. He looked at me and he says, Aaron, I believe in you. I've always seen that over your life. I think you can do it. Let's do this thing together. Those words of significance shaped my life. Somebody that was a little further ahead of me looked at me and pointed his finger at me and said, you can accomplish it. I see gold inside of you. And that one moment changed my life. Your words are significant. And here's what I believe. People tend to become what the most important person in their life speaks that they can become. So your spouse will become what you speak over them. Your children will become what you speak over them. Your friends will become what you speak over them. You are a significant person, and your words have significant power. So as a leader, do not think that your words are insignificant. You have lips that are sealed, able to hold confidence. You have lips that are stable. They're able to be controlled. They are not up and down, back and forth. They are also significant. They have life inside of them. They have potential inside of them. And if you see it in somebody's life, Say it over them. Encourage what you see. And if you have to have a hard conversation, which we all do, let it be filled with grace, seasoned with salt, thought through, and methodically approached in such a way that it builds the person up instead of just tearing them down because of how frustrated we are. So your words have power. Maybe, just maybe today, you should encourage somebody, send someone an encouraging text, maybe call someone up that maybe God puts on your heart, and those words that you speak over them could be the very thing that shapes their future. I've heard it said this way, that your words create your worlds. Now, we obviously don't believe that you can just speak like God did and create whatever world you want to create. What that means is the worlds that you live in when it comes to your workplace, your church, your family, your friends, those worlds are created. They're either built by the words that you speak or they're tore down by the words that you speak. Be a person that speaks in such a way that builds people up. You cannot have a positive life with negative words. And you also, I don't believe that you can have a negative life when you have positive words in your life. So speak in such a way that is so significant, and watch what'll happen when you guard your lips as a leader. I hope this podcast has helped you. Make sure you subscribe, and I want to hear how this is helping you. Share it with some friends, and I will see you next month for Made for More.